Thanks everybody for joining today. What we're really going to jump in and talk about is some of the challenges with emergencies and how does that impact not just facilities teams, but how does that help and impact the safety and security side of the house. Also, how to access information in an emergency. And it's not just the day-to-day stuff that facilities is fixing HVAC units and they're on a roof or they're in a mechanical room. It's something's going sideways in the building, and now you've got to react. Also, how to mitigate that risk by being able to access that information and share it real time with folks. Meaning you're offsite and you're in another building, and you can access the information for another site and actually communicate real time via your phone. Have access to that and share that information, even with first responders when they roll up to the building. Also, how to access shutoffs. One of the things that I keep hearing over and over again, gas, water, power, med gas, if you're in healthcare, is where are they? You know, they change when you renovate a building. They're up at a ceiling grid, but which tile do I pop? And we're going to talk about that and how that can also, by accessing that information, can speed up your response times. But also how security and facilities teams can work side by side and how they coordinate when something is going sideways. So let's jump right in here. Let's talk about some of the things with regards to workplace violence. There's a huge uptick in workplace violence, especially in healthcare. Many articles written about that where it's becoming commonplace in the workplace, where there's people walking in off the street. You've got patients, you've got visitors, and there's a huge uptick in that. Also, active shooter events. This has been forever. There's been active shooter events, but obviously when school's back in session like it is right now, you see a huge uptick in that. And how do you respond and access the information to be able to react when those types of incidents happen? I live in Florida. We have natural disasters all the time. We have flooding, we have hurricanes, we have tropical storms. In the West Coast, you have wildfires often, and they actually just were hit by a hurricane this year. So again, how can you access information in an emergency and be able to respond? Also, burst water pipes, normal stuff, pipes leaking or it bursts, and how do you react and know where that stuff is to shut it off? I mentioned earlier, pipes and shutoffs are a big deal for everybody. And think about the last time you exercised your valves. Well, how are you supposed to exercise something when you don't even know where it is? We're going to talk about power outages, how to access information, how to access where all the panels are, all those power sources, and be able to find that information and be able to react and adjust where you need to, and know which breaker do you have to turn, to trip to get to that unit to shut the power off of that thing. Also, cyber attacks. Right? We were just talking about this earlier before the podcast or before this webinar started, and cyber attacks are becoming more and more frequent, and it's across the board, all industries. And I've heard that many of them are coming in through the back door, through other systems that are out there. So it's really critical that you have access to your information offline. Also, that you have access to your information off-site, okay, in the cloud, where it's backed up redundantly. So even if you get hit once, it's not on a share drive that all of a sudden that share drive's locked down. So again, we're going to jump into how to really mitigate that risk as well. But the challenges impacting emergency management is teams are on the go. They're all over the place. They're running around like crazy. They're constantly on the move. But what that often time happens is the response time is slowed down because information is all over the place. It might be in flip charts, it's in a binder someplace, or you've got a thumb drive someplace where it's in a locked office, nobody can access it anyway. But that bottleneck, it really hinders your time. And again, you're going to see a theme here: time, response. It's slowing you down by not being able to react and respond when something is going sideways. And that creates these bottlenecks, right? If information's in a plan room or information's in a locked a locked office someplace where only one person has a key or a handful of people have a key. Well, where is that binder? Is it in the desk drawer? Is it on the shelf? Is it even clearly marked? But limiting access to that information, even on your desktop computer, right? Can you access that when you're at home? Because emergencies happen not always 9 to 5. They happen at five o'clock in the morning. They happen at 1 a.m. Can you access the information to do your job, to respond, to react when something's going sideways? But also being able to access that stuff, like I mentioned earlier, not on a share drive where it's buried in folders. Which folder do I go into? Is that the most recent version? Well, wait a minute, we changed the building. You understand, it's information can be all over the place, even if it's on a share drive someplace. Well, here's the other underlying problem. I just heard this week. They went into their share drive trying to find their emergency plan, and somebody accidentally went in there and deleted it. Start over. It's all gone. So again, who controls the access to that information too? So again, it's about that bottleneck and being able to find information when it counts. So buildings are continuously changing too. So what that means is as you knocking down walls, or you're renovating a floor, or you're renovating an entire building, or you're adding on to a building, means stuff moves. Equipment moves, mechanical equipment moves, shutoffs move. Now the electrical panels are serving different areas of the building because it is that panel schedule that's inside that door current. But they move, and that means security needs to know that information. Your facilities team needs to know that information. And how many changes have happened over the years? And who knows what those changes were? It's usually a handful of people. Well, the challenge is, how does that help the new person who started last week? It doesn't. They're blind. They don't know your building. So what I'm stressing here is the importance of everybody. The person who's been there for 30 years or the person who started last week should be able to access information to do their job, and also to react and respond quickly when something's going sideways. All right. Again, information all over the place. But again, the more of this information that changes, or more of the times that your building has changed, all those renovations means more documentation. All these rolls, and I love showing this image because all those little hanging tags, if you look at them, they've got a number on them. Well, that number's in a book someplace. Well, what's number 24? What's roll number 29? I have to go to this book. Did anybody even update that book? Is the other roll that's hanging on this in the shelf here or in that cubby there, is it even in the book? Those tags fall off, all right? So what you oftentimes find is people are laying drawings on a table. They never put them back. Again, it's an avalanche of paper. But what that means is these are all changes to your building. Well, that's not going to help me when the building's got a gas leak or it's on fire. Which roll do I grab? Do I grab the one in the cubby in the left or the cubby in the right? Or are they even indicated what building they're in? It's a mess. So again, it's a huge time thing. And again, you're going to hear that recurring theme. It's time. But many orgs are facing this. It's all over the place. Drawings, I've got them in a drawer. I've got them in a plan room. I've got them hanging on stick files. They're in boxes. I actually was talking to somebody the other day, and they were moving their plan room someplace, and this was a school. They were moving their plan room to another part of another building, and they were doing it over the weekend, and they put all the drawings in these big Rubbermaid trash cans, and put stickers on them on the outside, all over them. It said, "Do not trash." All their drawing sets for the entire campus were in these tubs or in these trash cans all over the place. Third party, okay, that they hired to come in and clean the building for custodial, came in and threw them all in the dumpster, all of them. They found out Monday morning, and they caught it right before the trash company came. So they were dumpster diving for all morning, trying to dig all those drawings out. Think about that. Paper, disintegrates. Paper gets trashed. Paper gets misplaced all the time. So how's that going to help you if it's gone? Capturing that institutional knowledge, capturing that legacy knowledge of the building, which is all in this paper, is critical. But here's the other problem, though. Even if I scan all that stuff in and dump it on a shared drive, doesn't mean I can find it. This is no better than the paper. If I can't find it, what good is it? Or what if you open up some of these folders and you see A2.2.PDF? What building is that? What floor is that? What is that? I have no idea. Was that a renovation? Was that or even worse, you scan a drawing in and it leaves it the default name of whatever the scanner named it when you scanned the thing. No one ever renamed it. Or it's just deleted. That doesn't help me at all. But you need this information for not just general facility stuff that you guys are fixing all the time, but also when something's going sideways, you need to know where the plumbing drawings are. You need to know where the electrical is. Having access to that information is a big deal. But loss of that institutional knowledge is even bigger. So you've got guys and gals on the team that have been there for a long time and they know where stuff is. Well, how does that going to help the new person? Right? What's your training program? What is your method for even marking ceiling grids to say where the shutoff is or where that mechanical piece of equipment is? They're running around like crazy fixing stuff. And again, it comes down to time. Do they have time to mark this stuff? Do they have time to track down where something is? Or do they have time to answer their phone when the new person just started and they're calling them on a Saturday because they're working second shift and it's Saturday? Right? All the information is all over the place. It's either in somebody's head or it's in a plan room or it's in a share drive, or it's in a binder someplace. But let me ask you this, okay? And I threw this out there on the table the other day to a guy. I said, is it your expectation that the team is just going to remember where stuff is? Because if that's your expectation, you're setting them up for failure, right? Let me repeat that. You're setting them up for failure and you're setting yourself up for failure. If you're relying on one person to know where stuff is and they don't share where that information is or where that stuff is, those are single points of failure, which means you're going to fail. Okay. And you've got to understand that everybody should be looking at the same stuff. Everybody should have access and never be digging for stuff to find their job. But think about where equipment and shutoffs are. Are they mapped out? Does the team have access to them, on their phone? Right here, on your phone. Everybody's got a smartphone in their pocket. Everybody does. So if you're reliant on the team having to go back to a desktop computer someplace, that means that you're pulling them off the roof where they're trying to sort something out, or you're pulling them out of a mechanical room to go to a desktop, or they've got a laptop on their cart and they're sorting through hundreds and hundreds of files trying to find the most recent electrical drawing from when that renovation happened back in 1985. Again, time. But being able to access that stuff in the field is critical. But here's something, and this just happened the other day, and I was talking to a client of mine. It's actually a school district. They were out in California. And he said, Dave, I got a story for you. I love those calls. He said, we had the fire department call. It was a Saturday, and they had one of their HVAC units on a roof caught on fire. Fire department rolls up. The on-call guy for the district rolls up to the building about 10 minutes later. They're trying to find the electrical panel for this thing that's on the roof, right? They roll up. They can't find it. Their rooms are filling up with smoke. The on-call guy rolls up to the building, pulls his phone out of his pocket, says, here's the shutoff. Literally in about 2 seconds, he goes, boom, here's the shutoff. It's in the room right here. The unit's right here. It's actually 2 doors down in this classroom right here in the back corner of that wall. He runs into the fire department goes in there. The chief walks up to him and says, how the heck did you do that? That's what he can do today because they have everything mapped out. He had it in an app. He could access it wherever he was. And keep in mind, the first responders beat him there. Okay, first responders roll up. They call the district trying to track down, somebody who has instant access to stuff and can find the stuff. Calls the on-call guy. The on-call guy, technically, if he had the cell phone for that fire chief, he could have screen captured it, circled it, and text messaged that to the fire chief who's standing in the doorway. That's what you can do today with a lot of technologies, and especially technologies I'm going to show you some examples of here in a few minutes. You can do this stuff today. It's not rocket science, right? The guy could pull his phone out of his pocket, find the shutoff to kill the power to this unit in seconds. Ask yourself this: can you do that today? And if you can't, it's 2023. Why not? Think about that. Every person on your team has a smartphone in their pocket. All of them. Even the guy who's been there for 30 years, 40 years, he's got a smartphone today. Everybody should be able to access stuff to do their job. So on-the-go access, what does that mean? That means I'm in a roof, or I'm in a mechanical room, or I'm at home, all right, or I'm on vacation. I should be able to access all the stuff to be able to respond intelligently when it counts. So access to those evacuation plans, life safety plans, all the stuff that you would traditionally see in the old school, have it in a binder someplace or have a flip chart. What is my instant response in case of an active shooter or a natural disaster or whatever the case may be. But having access to that stuff on my phone, mobile, wherever the heck I'm at. You can still access stuff via your desktop, but you're not carrying a desktop with you. You may have a laptop with you, but again, does your laptop have access to the internet? Or do you have Wi-Fi access? Your phone, you always have access to it. So why can't you access it there? But again, accessing that information when it counts. So when a pipe bursts, when a fire happens, when a gas leak, whatever the thing is that's going on in your building, being able to access this stuff quickly. But that picture in the center down there, where it's got the water leak going down that hallway, that happened in 45 minutes. Think about that. That's a hospital, critical care hospital in the Southeast US, 45 minutes. The one guy who knew where the isolation valve was for that floor was on vacation. One guy, single point of failure. Again, relying on one person or a handful of people to know where stuff is setting yourself up for failure. And it's putting an undue expectation on your team. Everybody should be able to access it. This is not, something that they're holding the cards to their vest. No, this is your building. Everybody should have access to that stuff. But access to mitigate risk, and we're going to really focus in on risk here, and mitigating that risk is helped by increasing the speed of your response. All right, accessing information to shutoffs, gas, water, power. Think about that. If a 5-minute water leak happens, it's a bucket and a mop. All right, but if it's a 50-minute or a 45, like I just showed you, it's thousands and thousands of dollars. That photo that I showed you, that leaked down to the next floor and went on 2 MRI machines. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Brand new machines, gone, right? But again, responding quickly because you have access to real information, real-time information. Also accessing that information remotely, no matter where you are, having access to stuff to be able to respond, but all the up-to-date current information. You're not having to run back to a building, to a plan room. You're not having to run back to a mechanical room because you think there's some electrical drawings tucked behind a guy's desk. No, all the information is all accessible wherever you are. All right? And again, it means faster response times, even when you're not on site. You can access the information wherever you are. Also, making sure that all the contact information is correct and having access to my emergency contacts, building to building, site to site. Here's my emergency action plan. Here's my emergency plan. Here's all the emergency contacts. Here's all the evacuation routes, safe refuge areas, all the information, as well as all my drawings for the building, full MEP. All right. All the information, including SDS sheets, can be included in there. All right. I'll just share a real quick story about a school that I talked to, and their safety officer was walking around, and all of a sudden he sees one of the labs and water's just pouring out from underneath the door. Well, on the door are all the signs that says there's chemicals in there. He didn't know what all the chemicals were. He didn't know what the makeup was. All right. Didn't have access to where the information was. So fire department rolls up. They break out hazmat suits. They're getting ready to go in, but there's chemicals in there because, again, it's a lab. There's all kinds of different chemicals. Well, imagine before they even go in, being able to pull up all the SDS sheets or a complete list of all the chemicals that are in that space. Then they know whether or not it's safe to go in there. That's all possible today. You can do that. But again, it's about information and access to that information, but also the ability to share that information. And when I mentioned first responders, but you can also share information with your vendors. You get a third party org that goes out and inspects all your fire extinguishers. Great. They can have access to all of your fire extinguishers mapped out. Where are they? One of the orgs that I work with, we actually went out and mapped out all of their fire extinguisher locations. They had 290 fire extinguishers. Who goes out there with that person to map out? And they don't use a third party. They actually have a guy in-house. It's always the new guy. So the expectation is for that guy to remember where 290 fire extinguishers are located. Really? Right? And it's always the new guy. So the guy who was doing it last year isn't the guy doing it this year. So now, how does that guy find all those fire extinguishers? And when I do site walks with folks, I constantly am keeping an eye on the tags as I'm walking by, and I can see the ones that are expired. I'm not blaming anybody. It's just they don't know. But imagine being able to pull all those up on your phone as you're walking into a building floor to floor and say, oh, there's 5 on this floor. Let's walk down. We got to go down this hallway, turn left down at the end, and you got to go into this room. There's a lab. It's in the back corner. Matter of fact, we got 2 different kinds of fire extinguishers in this room because there's the different kinds of extinguishers they need for the chemicals and things that are in that space. That's what you can do today. But also providing access to that information to those first responders. Access, imagine that your local fire department, or maybe you have your own in-house fire department on your campus. You can access or give them access to this stuff so they have access to real time. So you make a change, they see the change too. Everybody's on the same page. But again, all the information, who needs to see it, they can see it, whether it's your team, a third-party vendor, or even first responders, and you can give them access to that site to site, building to building. But what if you could do this? So let's look at what that could look like. So let's talk about a shutoff. So again, you go to a shutoff, go to a building, you select this specific building, and you click a button that says shutoffs, all right? And then you go to the floor, and you can see all the individual stuff for that particular floor. You can see electrical panels. You can see all the stuff associated with that particular thing. And then you drill down, and you can even see photos of it, videos of it. You can see all the individual information about this particular thing. And you can even put in here, what does this serve? It serves this building. It serves these floors. Maybe it's an isolation valve that's up in a ceiling grid. You can even take photos of the ceiling grid of which ceiling tile you've got to pop. All that information all in one spot. Also access to all the emergency information. So again, click on a building, click on the floor, okay, drill down here, click on emergency equipment, click on the floor, and then all the different types of emergency equipment. Remember, we were talking about fire extinguishers. Okay, you can access even where are those particular fire extinguishers on this floor, and then drill down to the individual extinguisher, even put the fire extinguisher number in there. So this is all searchable as well. So you can see all the information about this particular building, but all the mechanical equipment, all your HVAC units on the roof and the mezzanine levels, first floor, second floor, basement, adjoining buildings, all the information associated with everything in the building all in one spot. So now the team can access it. Your third-party vendors can access it. Even have a QR code on that unit where the team can actually see all the information for that particular thing, whatever that thing is. That's the stuff that you can do today. But also capturing that legacy knowledge of a room. Imagine going into, and think about it from the first responders perspective. What if you were to go into a room and shoot a video of the entire room? Just a real short video, so you can click on any room in a building and see a panned view of that entire room. You can do that today. On a floor plan, have a button in each room, click on the room and see that video for that room. How would that benefit a first responder? Think about that. So you've got, God forbid, an active shooter event or some kind of an event going on in a room, and the first responder can see that entire room, see the entire layout of that room. My dad's a first responder. He was a first responder. I'm sorry, he just retired. 50 years as a firefighter. He does not know your building. Neither does the person who rolled up to your building last week. They don't know the interior of your building. Even if they've already got a floor plan, how many times have they been to your building? They don't know your building, but imagine that they've got access to even video, or now they can see when they bust through that door and there's a hallway, or do they go through that door and there's another door, or is there a hallway to the left, hallway to the right? They don't know, but imagine if they do have a floor plan and it's got all that stuff diagrammed out, all the photos of the space, and now they can access that when they roll up to the building. How powerful is that for them to be able to respond? It's a big deal. But capturing that legacy knowledge means also think about all the underground utilities. All right, this is a big deal, obviously, when you're digging and you're doing construction projects, you're working on a building, and you start digging with a backhoe, and oh, we hit a line, or oh, there's a line over there. Well, what building does that serve? I can't tell you how many times I've heard people that they'll start digging and they'll assume that the gas line, that the plates over here, that shuts off this building. Then they shut it off and the gas is still on in the building. And then they realize, wait a minute, there's another one that's on the other side of the building that's been buried under mulch, right? Didn't even know it was there because the guy that did know it was there retired 5 years ago. Happens all the time. So as you find stuff, being able to document where that stuff is a big deal, because again, it shouldn't be static. As you find stuff, you should be able to update stuff and manage that moving forward. And as soon as you update it, the team should be able to see it real time, live. You hit save and everybody sees it. And they see it right here on your phone. Again, access on your phone. They can access it from something that's in their pocket today. But being able to even pull up those photos and see where that stuff is a big deal. Okay, so let's look at what that could look like. All right, and what this is what it should look like. And again, this is 2023. It's not 1985. All right, or as my daughter says, the 1900s. Okay, but again, access where I am, no matter where I'm at. Being able to pull my phone out of my pocket or open a tablet, tap on an app, and be able to drill down to a campus, select a building, have access to all the information for that building, all the renovations that ever happened on this building, all in one spot. And I want to see one in particular, click on it, and I can see it. All the drawings for that building. But also, imagine being able to access all of the mechanical equipment in a building, and you've got access to that information live, right? Access, again, click on an app. All you got to do is tap on it. walk up to a unit, scan a QR code on a unit, scan a QR code. On this case, it's a generator. Scan that QR code and be able to pull up all the information for that particular unit. Being able to see the manuals, being able to see an exploded parts list, being able to see all the information about that unit, even the service records, even the testing reports. You can put all that in there tied to the device, whatever that thing is. And you can do that on any type of equipment, whether that's a mechanical piece of equipment, a generator, a fire extinguisher, anything that you want on all of your emergency lights. You can put that on there and access what that stuff is. But also access to critical information, no matter where the heck you are. Again, like I said, it's a big deal, but access to a shutoff, that's where stuff can go sideways quick. Click on a building, drill down, being able to click on a button that actually says shutoffs, and then drill down and see all the shutoffs in a building by type: gas, water, power, med gas, and even drill down to mains, isolations, be able to see backflows, transformers, all the switch gears, all the panels, even the panel schedule, and all of it is searchable. Even being able to put in, what does it serve, right? Access to information so I can react and respond quickly and intelligently. That's what we're talking about here. So facilities security, they're constantly working together, but this is a great quote that I thought that I wanted to share is, we lock doors. And again, this is coming from security. We lock doors, they fix doors. I thought that was funny, but it's the truth. That's the way a lot of people look at it. But they are the eyes and ears for each other. Let that sink in. They're all on the lookout. They work together. They're one unit, okay? They may not talk all the time, but they work together, and they got each other's backs, but they're there to protect the buildings and people. They also collaborate all the time, more than you even would think, but cross-training them and having them all on the same page and knowing what to do when something goes sideways is going to enhance your readiness when something does happen. But streamlining emergency management, again, on the weekends, we have one custodian working and usually one district police officer. And again, you can see it's about limited number of people here, but accessing stuff wherever they are and accessing that stuff even remotely and being able to share where that stuff is. I do site walks all the time with folks, and even with lead electricians that have been there for 30 years. And I can't tell you how many times I walk into a room and my knee-jerk reactions, I look behind a door. Can't tell you how many panels I've seen that were hidden behind a door. And it never fails that we're walking with that guy who's been there for all that time, where he says, I didn't even know that panel was there. It happens all the time. So again, if your expectation is that he or she is going to know where everything is in your building, not going to happen. That's not reality. Even the person who's been there for a long time doesn't necessarily know where everything is. So again, access to information and being able to add that panel when he or she finds it and hitting save so everybody sees it. It's a building. It's not a static thing. So if you're thinking about systems where we're gonna put it in here and it's static and you're never able to update it again, that's a failure point. You have to be able to update stuff real time as you find stuff, because you're gonna find stuff. So enhancing facility security, what that means for cross training is building layout familiarization. Your team is going to get to know the building, training the team where stuff is, training where all those fire alarm panels are, all the exit locations, all of that stuff helps them better respond in emergencies. Preventative maintenance awareness. Facilities can train security staff to spot maintenance issues and how to share that information when they see stuff. Remember, eyes and ears for each other. Emergency equipment maintenance. Being able to cross-train those teams so they know where all the extinguishers are. They know where all those emergency lights are. They know where all the exit signs are, and being able to share that, hey, I saw an exit light that's out. What's the process for when they find something like that? Do they text somebody? Do they just call? Well, what are the odds that person is going to remember? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they got to tell them 3 times. But again, working on procedures and being able to share that information. Think about being able to document even rounding. So if facilities or the security guys are walking around, having that stuff, having a floor plan up that says, hey, I found something over here, and documenting it. Both of them are documenting it in the same spot. Deficiencies in the building. Okay. It's not to point fingers at anybody. It's just, hey, I saw this. It's broke. We need to fix this. But documenting that stuff so that everybody's looking at it. Facilities looking at it, emergencies looking at it, security's looking at that. And now being able to fix that stuff. If it's still on the list or still documented there, it means it hasn't been fixed yet. If it's been fixed, they delete it, it's gone. But again, it's a way of monitoring that and documenting where that stuff is. Awareness of security concerns, making security teams aware of potential threats, including cyber attacks. So having access to all of this information offline, off-site, in a cloud where there's redundant backup. It's backed up 15 different locations. They're not going to hit them all right? And you have that redundant so you don't lose that information. I talked to one guy the other day, and they had all their stuff stored on a shared drive, and he had it backed up on a hard drive. It was like a terabyte hard drive, an external plugged-in hard drive. Both failed. They lost everything. Everything. Gone. So imagine, even if you scanned all your stuff in, you threw all the old stuff away, all that paper's gone, and now you dumped it all on a shared drive. You've been accessing it for 5 years. Everything's been working. All of a sudden, a shared drive fails. Now what? It's gone. What if it's non-recoverable? That happens a lot. That shared drive is gone. Even if they had a backup someplace, when's the last time and how frequently are they backing it up? That external drive where they were dragging stuff in there is the backup. When it fails, imagine a little thumb drive. Those fail all the time. If that's your backup, you're setting yourself up for failure. You don't have 15 copies of that traditionally. You got one. So collaborative meetings also. Think about how often you're communicating changes to the building, communicating what's going to happen, and how are you updating those changes into your emergency plan, and how's everybody on the same page? All right. How are you changing different things that are on that particular team or in that particular process that you've got in-house? But this is one area that I want to stress, and I cannot stress this enough. You have to start documenting where your stuff is, not just your shutoffs, not just your emergency equipment, documenting where every piece of mechanical equipment is. Your building's a whole. All the stuff in there is part of this whole holistic building approach. Everything should be documented. Your new person should be able to access the same stuff as the person who's been there for 30 years. Documenting where stuff is critical, and updating that as you go, updating those evacuation plans when you add a wing to the building, or maybe you move a door. That happens, but updating that stuff as you go. Pardon me. So a few of the essential takeaways here for collaboration between facilities and the security and emergency management side is really enhancing that information. You're all one team, all right? Work together, create that collaborative approach. You have to embrace mobility, accessing information from your phone, from your tablet, from home, from your office, from your car when you pull over because somebody just called you because something went sideways. Being able to come back and find all the information or pull it up on my phone, wherever the heck I'm at. It helps you mitigate risks and be proactive, not just reactive. Proactive communication between all parties, your team, your leadership, your emergency management side, your security team, your facilities team. Everybody's looking at the same stuff and everybody's on the same page. So everybody can make those informed decisions. But also being able to control and having access to where shutoffs are, where all those isolations are, being able to, that helps you to manage all your power and your water sources efficiently, being able to find all those panels, being able to find all those isolation valves, knowing what ceiling tile to pop, knowing what door to go into to find that electrical panel, knowing it's behind the door, knowing it's in a mechanical room, whatever. Being able to access that information is critical. Okay, and I cannot stress that enough. It is critical to being able to find what it is to do my job.